friends, Eric Andreas, your Guitar Sage here. Welcome. Today, we're going to talk all about gear. We'll talk about effects, pickups, guitars, probably strings, amps, that sort of thing. 30,000 foot view because there's lots and lots of things for us to discuss. There's no way we're going to be able to get to them all, but this is how it's going to go. I'm going to talk to you about all this good stuff for, say, the next half hour or so, and then I'm going to get to your questions at the half hour mark. Cool? All right. I've been getting lots of questions about gear, always questions about gear. So let's navigate this because it's really super simple if you take on a certain psychology in regards to gear. Okay. Now, before we get started, and I'm going to get into that psychology, and truly, if you understand this psychology part of it, you're not going to have issues with gear. The issues that people have with gear oftentimes have to do that they're getting more than they bargained for. They're getting stuff they don't need, and they're obsessed about things that really aren't going to move the needle forward, okay? So those are the things that we're going to talk about today and that we're going to get to in just one moment. Very quickly, I'm going to be referring very often, especially during question time, I'm going to be referring very often to the Unstoppable Guitar System Standard. I give this free to everybody. It's 30-something videos. Most everybody here has been there. Here's the link for it if you'd like to go. Otherwise, it's the very first link below. If you are not at a place where you can do that right now, you can always text me 833-744-0154 and text free to that number right there. I will get you set up with the course. Boom. That's how it's going to work, okay? A couple other things. We do have a few of, speaking of effects, we do have a few of the Dueling Ninjas in stock right now. They're going fast, but we do have a few if you want right now. Go to the store, go to the shop, and you'll find them in there. They've been going, at least one a day here recently. Okay, what else? Oh, tip jar. You should see a tip jar. Yeah, sure it is. It's right there at the top. You can also do it via Google here at the bottom next to the little smiley face. You can do a little donation there. Otherwise, if you don't want to give Google 30%, you can always do the buy me a coffee thing at the top there, and we'd appreciate that too. Thank you so much. Okay, a couple other things coming up. Chip Henderson has a jazz course that's going to be dropping this month. If you're into jazz, be looking out for that. And Joe Robinson, finger picker extraordinaire, finger stylist, known over the world. I mean, arguably one of the best fingerstyle guitar players living today. Absolutely a beast. Just did 3 courses with Joe, almost 500 videos. It has a beginner course coming out this next month. You do not want to miss this. It's like 5.5 hours. I think there's 120 plus videos in it. That's just the beginner section, okay? Tabs, the whole 9 yards. You're going to be learning from the guy himself, okay? So be looking out for those. We produce those here at Studio U, and we're very excited about those, to see those coming out very soon. Also, we have a referral program. If you guys, Mike, do we have a call to action for them for that referral program if they want to be part of that? Not really.
No, it's really just look for the email.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, yeah, so if you are a member of the Unstoppable Guitar System, and why wouldn't you be? Because I give it to you for free, right? Very first link below. We also have something called the referral program that we just rolled out. Took several months actually for us to get it all going, but essentially this is what it does. Whether you're a pro member and you're paying, whether you're a standard member and you're not paying, whether you're a classic and you're just paying a little bit, basically we've got a program to allow you to win all sorts of prizes, okay? To win $700 courses, to win t-shirts, to win stickers, to win books, the whole 9 yards. And essentially it's our referral program. If you are a member of UGS, then you should be seeing an email here shortly. If you haven't already, join that, my friends. It's super easy to win. More about that in the email that'll be sent to you, okay? Just be looking out for that. Okay, anything else? I don't think so. Here we go. All right, so let's talk about, we're gonna 30,000 foot view on this stuff until we get to effects, and then we might have some time to drill down even further, okay? Okay, guitars. Guitars built from all different years, right? Most of the time, especially when you're talking about electric guitars, you have some sort of pickup system. You have acoustic guitars, you have electrics. Acoustic are those guitars that you bring with you. You don't plug them in. You don't necessarily need to plug them in. They are in and of themselves the whole orchestra. You don't need to have an amp. You don't need to have effects. We know these, right? They come in steel string, nylon string. Nylon are the classical type of guitars that you typically play like this, and you're finger picking, and there's the whole thing, okay? That's nylon string, classical, flamenco, Spanish style guitar. It's not to say you can't rock out on one, you can, but they're not very loud. The strings shred pretty easily, which is why typically we're only using fingernails on them and not picks and digging in and all that stuff. It's just it's a lighter instrument made for different things, okay? Nylon string. Now, all three of these guitars, they're tuned the same way. Obviously, steel string guitar, steel string acoustic is that which just, it's the acoustic guitar, but with the steel strings. Electric guitar, you plug it in. You can plug an acoustic in, obviously, some of them, those that have pickup systems, and then you can run them through effects and everything. But like I always say, why would you take a Volkswagen and put mag tires on it and make it a race car? That's not really its job. Neither is it the job of a Mercedes, even though you could make it fast. Why do that? That's not what it was meant to do. So I'm a big fan of taking the acoustic guitar and making it an acoustic guitar, not running it through a bunch of effects unless I'm just sweetening it a little bit, maybe with a little bit of delay, a little reverb or something like that. But for the most part, I want it to sound like an acoustic guitar, otherwise I'd grab an electric guitar, right? Electric guitar we can do a lot more to. The base of the electric guitar, the basics of it, really have to do with the scale length of the guitar. Most people don't think this. They only think the pickups. And the second thing is the pickups. There's other things like the wood of the guitar, the wiring, and those sorts of things. But the main two variables that affect the sound of the guitar, probably in this order, are pickups and then the scale length of the guitar, often missed by a lot of folks. But the scale length of the guitar really determines some different things. The Fender is a longer scale length by, I think, 3/4 of an inch. So I think it's 25 and a half. Thank you, Mike, the non-guitar teacher here today. 25 and a half. Thank you. And Gibson's 24 3/4.
That's right.
Yeah. See, I always forget that stuff. I don't care. I just play guitar. But for those that do care, I mean, I know it does make a difference. But you know, so we're talking 25 and a half, right, Mike?
That's right.
You just told me 25 and a half, okay. That's the scale length from the nut to the bridge. It makes a difference. So if we had a Les Paul, which we happen to have right here, this is a 24 3/4 scale length, okay? And it has a different tone. Also, you'll notice that with the Fender, it arcs back. The headstock arcs back. That's why when these fall over, the Gibson. When these fall over, a lot of Gibsons will break right here because this is a point of failure. It's a weakness, okay? But it's also what makes the Les Paul sound like a daggone Les Paul, so don't change that. We don't want it straight. That's what we got the Fender for. And it just creates a different sound. So whether it's Tele or Strat or a Les Paul, you're gonna get different sounds from these. Obviously, the Strat and the Tele, same scale length, so that's gonna be similar, but the pickup configuration and some other things in regards to wood and tone switching and that sort of thing is going to be slightly different with those, okay? The basic difference, scale length, and the pickup. So these are single coil pickups, right, which create sounds like we just heard, right? You know, that kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan, Stratty. Okay. It's got a, you know, kind of gritty, hollowy type sound to it. I'm obviously adding some effects to this. Humbuckers are going to give you more of a hard rock sound, heavy metal sounds, okay? When we mean, you know, single coils are single, like the first finger, right? It's just about the size of a first finger or a finger. Humbuckers are, if you were to take both of those and put them together, that's what we have with a humbucker. So it's like basically two single coils next to each other with the coil wrapped around it, okay? And that creates a couple things. Number one, it phases out the sound that we don't like about Strats or single coil pickups when you get them near fluorescent lights and stuff. Usually there's like a humming sound. Probably can't even replicate it with my setup right now because it's so darn clean. Really, truly, I've been working on it. So humbuckers, they produce a more overdriven sound. It's more compressed. It's squashed. It's not quite as dynamic as single coils. And at the end of the day, with all of this stuff, let me help you a little bit with psychology on this, is you can read all day long and watch review videos all day long, but unless you actually hear what's going on, and even better than that, experience what's going on, it's not the same, okay? For the same reason that I could talk to you about love, or I could talk to you about chocolate, or you could experience love and you could experience chocolate, and it's a totally different thing, and a million of my words would not fill in the emotion that you got from those two things, okay? So music's the same thing. Sound is the same thing. When you hear it, it's totally different than someone telling you about something, right? So this is a P90, what we call a P90 pickup. It's basically a double stacked single coil. So they have a sound that's in between these two, okay? Oftentimes, it's a little bit more characteristic. It's got more characteristics to it, a more characteristic sound, meaning it's kind of its own duck. It's got its own vibe, okay? You don't hear them as often as these other two pickups, but they're a really cool sound. It's an older sound, and essentially it's a single coil pickup, but it's still wound. My understanding is it's wound. It's like stacking two single coils on top of each other. That's my understanding of it. Not a electronic whiz kid, so I don't know, but I do know it's single coil, and they sound great. I can use that pickup for hard rock and heavy metal all day long. It sounds fantastic. I can also use it for blues and a lot of other things. Can't use this one for heavy metal, although Yngwie Malmsteen does a pretty good job with it. So ultimately, you do what you want to do with the guitar, but the components do help, okay? Now, as far as amps, we've got the basics. Again, we can only cover basics today because there's just so much to cover. You got amps. You've got tube amps, and you have solid state amps. Solid state amps are usually more affordable. You can usually pack more into them, more effects, that sort of thing. They're lighter because they don't have these huge transformers and tubes and that sort of thing. So they're nice for practice amps in your house and that sort of thing. They turn on right away. You don't have to wait for tubes to turn up to get warm, that sort of thing. Tube amps, louder. Arguably, they sound better, at least turned up and everything else. The natural resonance of the tubes and how electricity runs through them and gets the sound from the amp due to the vacuum tubes as opposed to solid state, it's a sound that guitar players often like. They're also much louder amps, watt for watt. If you take a 10-watt tube amp and a 10-watt solid state amp, that 10-watt tube amp is going to be so loud that you probably aren't going to be able to stand by it if you turned it up to 10. Whereas the 10-watt solid state amp, you probably could turn up all the way and you're going to be like wanting a lot more volume, okay? So tube amps, hella more loud, okay? All right, let's talk for like 15 minutes here about effects, okay? Let's talk about effects. Then I'm going to get to your questions, okay? Merck Harris is saying, don't waste your time, get a tube amp, completely different instrument. Yeah, it does. It is. It really is. It depends on the two amps that you're comparing as well. I have this Boss Katana amp that's not a tube amp. It's a cool little practice amp for the money, and it can sound really good. So then I've had tube amps that stunk, but for the most part, tube amps, it's just a different engineering mindset that goes into building a tube amp. Okay, and they usually excel in regards to tone and that sort of thing. All right, going to get to your questions in just a minute here. Let's look at some effects here. And now this screen that Mike's going to show you here is literally the interface for my Kemper amp. So I've got my Kemper amp here. And this is what the interface would look like on my computer, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you Yeah, you could put me right in the middle there, Mike. In fact, there's nothing going to be in this area here in the middle, so you could put me right there. Yeah, there I am. Okay, so effects. Effects are things that you add to your guitar sound that create things like this, and echo, or reverb, or delay. Okay, we have these different sounds, and in a nutshell, here's what they are. There's overdrive, which is this sound. Right, as opposed to clean. Right, so we got some overdrive there, and that just brings up the energy, if you will, of the guitar. More overdrive, the more energy there is. Think Metallica on this end and Joe Pass on this end, right? Super clean, and Metallica is just heavy, right? All right, so you have overdrives, distortion, fuzz. Essentially, they all do the same thing. Let's real quick, before we go any further in this, let's talk a little bit about psychology. Do not get overwhelmed. If you're feeling overwhelmed about effects, it's probably because you think that you need something that you don't. So anybody out there right now, if you're being overwhelmed right now about gear acquisition syndrome, if you have gear acquisition syndrome, gas, or you feel like you need something but you don't know what it is, let's chill psychologically here. We need to understand what's going on. People say, what effects do I need? And I say, it's kind of a weird question. It's like you say, do I need an umbrella today? Well, is it raining? Because if it's not, you probably don't need an umbrella. I don't carry one when it is raining, but you don't need one. So what I'm saying to you is, people say, well, what effects do I need? What do you mean need? For what? For what specifically? Well, to play. Well, to play what? Are we talking about, do you want to copy some AC/DC? Do you want to copy The Edge from U2? Are you going for your own sound? Like, what are you trying to do? Because one artist paints with his fingers, another one paints with a certain type of brush, the other one's going to paint with the edge of a scraper. So, it just depends on what it is that you're looking to do. Very, very important. This is why I always talk about finding your why. So find out what it is that you like. If you are listening to a particular song and you say, well, now wait a minute, what are they doing with that guitar? What are those effects? That's a good place to start, okay? Because now you do a little investigating. Well, that's why that's why we have the web, right? We can get on the web and we can search and we can say, what effects does Angus Young use? Okay, none. He uses some overdrive and slight bit of reverb, and that's about it. But The Edge from U2 might use something, well, he does. He uses entirely different setup. And so you would want to investigate that. What is he using, okay? Delays, reverbs, modulations, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's go back again. We got to know what it is we're looking at, because you could go out right now. Here, let's make this easy. You could go out and buy 1,000 guitar effects pedals right now and just barely scratch the surface, okay? So if it is that you're trying to complete everything, then go out and buy 1,000 pedals and you'll just be getting started, okay? Let's not do that. So let's keep it simple, and let's think about what it is that we actually need. And so it's very important for you to pinpoint what it is that you want to do, listen to the people that you want to sound like, or if you're developing your own sound, start dabbling with those things. But just understand, you don't need to go out and get a bunch of stuff, okay? There are things like this, which are a multi-effects processor, which do lots of things in one particular box, and then you can buy individual pedals. I have both. I do both. The reason why you might want to do one over the other is that the multi-effects processor, you typically get a lot more for your money, and if you're okay with menus and that sort of thing, you can drill down into these and get anything that you want. The problem with these is everything's in one place, as opposed to if you have a foot pedal board, which is what a lot of Nashville guitarists choose to use. A lot of professional guitar players choose to do that. I've done both. Right now, this is what I'm doing, and I love it. selling a lot of my pedals right now, actually. But if you have a big pedal board, you can always say, okay, there's my fuzz pedal and I want to tweak that knob. Or here's my reverb and I want to tweak that parameter. Whereas with a multi-effects processor, sometimes you're going into menus and you have to look. It's kind of like your TV. You got to look, right? And we're going to see that here in just a minute. This Kemper is kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion, because I can do things graphically, or it has a bunch of knobs and a bunch of buttons right up front. Makes it easier, okay? So it's the best of both worlds, in my opinion. So that's multi-effects versus modular. If you're doing modular, it costs a lot more money because each pedal is going to be like a minimum of $100, sometimes upwards of thousands of dollars. So that can be very expensive, whereas multi-processor, much more affordable. Okay, so now going back to, let's do just an overview to see what effects maybe you would need is, typically you start with the wah pedal in the front, the wah or the volume, okay? A wah pedal is this sound, right? Okay, it gets that kind of, and right now I have my foot on a pedal, and that's how I'm creating that sound. It's I'm moving it back and forth. A pedal, volume, all the way in the front. Then that's followed by things like overdrives, fuzz pedals, that sort of thing. Those things that overdrive the sound, okay? You call them whatever you want to call them. They're overdrives, okay? Fuzz pedals. Next, after that, you're going to have things like modulation, which would be things like this. You just heard it here. Hang in there. You heard this sound. That's tremolo. That's a modulator. You also have flangers, choruses, and that sort of thing that also go in that category. After that, you would have delay, which is this sort of sound, or a longer one, right? And then you would also have things like just reverb, which is this type of sound here. Okay. And usually in that order. Let's look here. We only got about 5 minutes before I get to your questions. I always want to tell you so much, and we can only get to so much. Okay. All right. So looking at our screen here, you know, things like let's go to tremolo here. I'm going to turn that on, and so you see that I have things like rate, which is how fast this is moving. The depth, so how wide we want that sound. Okay. You have the volume, which is self-explanatory. Crossover, ducking, these are things that you're not going to see in a lot of other effects. So ducking, whenever you see ducking in effects, what it means is when you hit the chord hard, or whatever it is that you're doing, what ducking is, as you increase that, it's like at that initial attack, the effect is not there. And then it starts coming in after the initial die-off or the initial attack ends, then that comes in, okay? We're kind of getting into the weeds if we're talking about much more than that. Crossover, I'm not going to get into that. Let's talk about delay, or talk about reverb. So reverb, let's turn this delay off here too. So reverb is that sound that you hear like if you're in a cave or a bathroom. Right, in this case here, it sounds like a cave. This is the delay time. If we wanted to be way out in space here, we could be. And it just fades. In fact, I have a 32-second delay on that, or 32-second reverb trail. If I turn up this mix, it's too much, but in my opinion. So you can do some different things with that to create spaces, right? I do this all the time with this new project that I'm working in. We have delays and reverb all over the place. I've played in many bands where I wasn't using that hardly at all, but this band just calls for it. There's lots of cowboy type guitars and there's lots of this going on, and you know, a lot of that going on. So for me, I love it. It's perfect for the style of music that I'm playing right now. Okay, so a single delay. So lots of stuff to look at here. At the end of the day, there's really a few things that we want to talk about when it comes to delay, and that is a feedback, which is how many times we have this sound. How many times that happens. If I turn the feedback up, in fact, I think this one goes to 100%, so just gonna keep going. Okay? The mix is how much that mix that we hear. So usually for feedback, I'm turning it up to something where I've got, depends. It really depends on the song. People are always asking, what are the correct settings? Obviously, since there's settings, there is no correct. That's why there's settings. Otherwise, they would just be set already for you. So you get to do what you want. So you have to learn this stuff, and it comes through intuition. You do not have to go to learn some course, okay? You can literally just use your ear and be like, okay, that delay is too strong. There's too much. It's happening too many times. It's bleeding into this chord. Okay, well, back it off. You don't need a degree to do that. You can easily just turn down that feedback or turn down the mix. The mix is how much, again, you're hearing. So in this case here, I have it higher than 100%, so let's do it at about, I don't do anything more than 100%. In fact, even this is too high for usual for me. I might do that for something where I had that short of a feedback, like 1, 2, 3, and then it starts fading out. I might do something like that, you know, for a solo. It's pretty cool, you know. It's cool. It's like a little response, if you will. In fact, if I go to, I'm going to give you an example here. This is a tune that we play called Rolling Thunder, and it has this little solo section in it where I'm using the delay to bolster the sound of the solo. So it goes like this. So now without that, and in fact, let's see. Yeah, so if I didn't have that, obviously, we just have that plain old solo sitting out there. Right, but with that, we got. You know, so and I will take, you know, when I'm creating my tones for a song, I mean, God, I mean, I just tweak until it's right, until it sounds right to me. So you want to do the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't care if it took hours or days. I'm going to get that sound right to where when I dig into the guitar, it's the last thing in the world I'm thinking about is the tone, because it's been programmed. I've done it. It's done. Whether it's foot pedals or whether it's the Kemper, it doesn't matter. So All right, so let's kind of tie this up here in the end, all right? And then we're going to get to some questions here. So as far as effects, this is what you want to do. Look, when you were 3 years old and you could barely walk or not walk at all, you weren't concerned with running shoes. You weren't like, oh man, if I only had running shoes, then I would be able, because look, all these adults have sneakers on and I'm 3 years old, I obviously need to have a good pair of kicks or I'm not going to be able to walk. We know that's not true, but mentally, are you doing that right now? Do you think that there's a certain guitar or a certain effect or a certain amp that you need to make it or to become the guitar player that you need to be? Because the answer is 100%, it's never that. Never is. It would help. It helps to get new gear, makes you stay in it longer, play, dig in more, usually, right? Because you got a new toy, something to work with. But at the end of the day, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. I didn't have lots of effects as a kid, didn't have a lot of money for guitars and amps and what have you. So I just kind of made do. And I suggest you do the same until you get familiar with these things. It's a journey, right? It's a marathon. So just understand that no one learns this stuff in a day. We shouldn't think that we would either, you know. One effect at a time. When you need it, you like a particular sound, you go, what effects are they using? You're asking a teacher, you're asking the web, you're researching. You find out what those things are. You find an article from Eddie Van Halen talking about his flanger and his phaser and everything else, and now you go, okay, well, I need to go get one of those. And you get one of those and you start programming it like they do because you're reading those notes and you're watching interviews and that sort of thing, and now all of a sudden you're getting the sounds that you're looking for, and it's a thrill, okay? But the answers are out there. You just got to keep digging, okay? I promise you. All right, let's get to some questions because I know that there's a lot of them, okay? So let's go all the way to the top here. Let me see who our first folks were in here. Jim Adkins, Doug Heckler, love that. They were here early on. Okay, beautiful. Okay, Kalamazoo, Michigan in here, Reno, Nevada. Beautiful. Okay, I won't go through all the names and where everybody's from, but if you have a question, all caps, question mark, that'll help a ton, okay? Jeff's 6, he's in Nashville. Beautiful. What's up, Jeff? What's up, my neighbor? Bikini, Florida, Missouri, Serbia, it's cool, Tampa, Croatia, 30-day, good, if you haven't done it, you'll be grateful. Thank you, my friend. Would you recommend a guitar, transmitter, and receiver? Man, that technology has been good since the 80s, so it's kind of hard to mess up. Line 6, I have a review for a Line 6 version of it, of that guitar, transmitter, and receiver, and it was really good. I loved it. Line 6 makes great stuff. So just search YourGuitarSage Line 6 wireless, and you'll find what I'm talking about there. Sage, Texas, rolling through Nashville. What's up, buddy? Nice. Willie. Sweden. We got Wales, Missouri, Copenhagen. Everybody from all around the world. I love it. Missouri. What do I want for coffee? A mocha, please. Or I get a vegan Cuban. That's what I get usually. Do you know possible reasons why my guitar amp keeps buzzing? There's a few different things that it can be. It could be that you need a lift on your amplifier, which is basically something that takes the ground plug off, which is usually not advisable because that ground plug is there to protect you, but sometimes, you know, if you're getting those buzzing sounds, safety or sound, what do you want to go with? But it can be other things too. You could have lights that are creating EMF waves, right? These people that don't believe in EMF waves and 5G and everything else. Take a phone like this and put it up to your guitar. I'm sure that's doing nothing to our brains. What could be wrong with that? So EMF waves, right? So they come from phones, they come from lights, they come from the sun, they come from radios, they come from all sorts of things. But the short of it is, if that interference, if you don't have something to block it, like number one, I don't have it this close, right? I do right now, but But if it's, you want to back away from those things that make that noise. Noise gates help, but you typically want to deal with the noise. Noise gate's a last result, and it's for the little bit that you can't seem to get out mechanically in any way, moving away from lights, that sort of thing. So there's lots of reasons why that could be, okay? Thank you, Mike, for the coffee, so appreciate that. We got Lauderdale in the house. Mark is saying, get a single coil and a tube amp, spend $2K and be done with it. Yep. Where's everyone from? Missouri in the State House. Okay, good. Colorado. What's the average output of P90s? I don't know about an average output. I mean, it's just like regular pickups, like any of the other pickups. They're all over the place. So it just depends on how many wounds somebody put on that pickup. Most of the P90s that I've played, though, could almost pass for a humbucker. They just sound... they just overdrive great. Oh, Brian's got a new Spark amp. Nice. Oh, thank you, Scott. UGS Pro is top tier of Eric's offerings, but if you can't afford fixed income like me, plenty of other options to get you started. Thank you, Scott. Okay, acoustic effects. Yeah, you know, usually what we're talking about there, unless you want your acoustics to sound like an electric, you can run all the same effects you want. There's no effect that you can't run with the acoustic, but usually you're gonna run just a slight bit of reverb. You might run a slight bit of delay, maybe a slight bit of modulation. That's the average, you know, that's what most people would do if they had effects on their acoustic, because they too want it to sound like an acoustic guitar, not some, you know, space vehicle or something. An electric guitar you can do all that with, okay? Okay, good, good. Yeah, gear acquisition syndrome. We all have it. I'm doing away with it. What I do anymore is, like, if I have a guitar or if I have an amp or a pedal or something like that that I really truly don't use, I've got other ways to do it, like looper pedals. I've got so many looper pedals. I don't need another way to loop. I'm covered there, you know. Samuel, how to play lead of any song. Find the tab and practice. That's a broad question, so it's got a broad answer. Find the tab, ultimate-guitar.com. Start learning it, note for note, measure for measure, beat for beat. Don't stop. That's how to do it. I saw someone asking about headphones, right? So for an electric guitar. So if your amp has a headphone jack, that's all you need to know. You plug your amp or plug your headphones into the headphone section. If it doesn't have that, I wouldn't be plugging those headphones into any other thing. It has to be the headphone jack. You can break your headphones, you can break your amp. Don't do this, okay? Oh, Willie, nice. With the Spark, you can look up Eric's backing tracks on Pro Jam Tracks and noodle over them. Oh, sweet. Thanks, Willie. And in fact, friends, those jam tracks can be found on YouTube. The channel is Pro Jam Tracks. Pro, separate space, jam, separate word, jam, separate word, tracks.
Link in the description.
Oh, thanks, Mike. And link will be in the description of the video, so check that out. Lots of visual jam tracks for you guys to use, all different genres. If you don't know what visual jam tracks are, just check it out. Essentially, you're seeing the chords at the same time. Okay. Good. A lot of people liking that Spark amp. The best simple setup for blues. Okay, Tennessee Valley Yoga. Let's talk about it. So I'll give you my basic blues tone here. This is what I use. This is my basic blues tone. So let's take a look at what I have going on here. So this is, I I have a little bit of overdrive. So really, you're going to be looking at the lower area here. This is just a list of patches. So this is my area down here. And really, other than the amplifier, which, you know, this is the amplifier. I've got the gain going up a little bit here. Now, with this, now you're going to see that amp. Watch this knob here. You're going to see it go from the red to the blue. When I kick in this other pedal here, what it does is it increases the gain of the amp. Right? So that's the gain, and I have a little bit of spring reverb on it, and that's how simple the blues sound is. Okay, now, no reverb. Right? Sounds very lonely. Little bit of spring reverb. Why spring reverb? Because the sound typically that you hear from those old blues players is an old Fender amp with spring reverb, because they had a spring in it, and they'd run the sound through the spring. I don't know how, through the magic of spring technology. They'd run that sound through the spring, and then the spring would shake from the harmonics that were hitting it, from the frequencies that were hitting it, and then they somehow would extrapolate the reverbed sound, right, the spring sound, and they would mix it with the regular sound, and then that's how you get this. It's high tech. So that's your basic blues sound. So good, that's it, literally, that's all I would use. Anything more of that is kind of not getting into blues now, right? All right, is this a major upgrade? Yeah, this is a Kemper I'm using right now, but you know, it's like, not saying you major upgrade. I'm not talking about you, but some people get obsessed. They're like, I'm never gonna get that sound because I don't have a Kemper. I was getting these sounds, or close to these sounds, when I had my Fender Blues Junior, which is right in the back, which I'm probably gonna end up selling. And I was doing this with my own pedals, okay? Just come up with my own, you just curtail the sound to whatever you want, okay? You're like, man, it needs more bass. So you turn up the bass. Man, it needs less treble, so you turn down the treble. You just do the thing that it needs, and if you know what that is, okay, it needs to overdrive more. Well, if you know what the overdrive is, and you know where that knob is, you turn the overdrive up. If you want more reverb, you turn the reverb up. If you want the reverb to be longer, you find out how long the reverb trail needs to be. Is it 6 seconds? Is it 30 seconds? Is it 2 seconds? What do you need? And you don't even necessarily need to time it. You just use your ear. Okay. All right. All right. Looking for question marks. Here we go. Would you recommend a guitar receiver and transmitter? Okay, yeah, that's the line 6 one that I mentioned. Eric, what are your opinions on multi-effects units versus building your own pedal board? Major upgrade, I'm torn. Like, I really truly love old school pedal boards. I like to be able to reach down and adjust my sound immediately on whatever effect that I want. Like, that is a big plus. For studio musicians, it's absolutely crucial, and that's why studio musicians usually aren't, you know, unless they're working from home or something, they're not using the Kemper because they want to reach stuff immediately. And if you know your gear and you're plugging into the amp that you want with the guitar that you want, and you know the sound that you're going to get, and it's just a matter of tweaking some effects, you can do that immediately on the pedal board, right? What I don't like about it, like for a live situation, like I have all sorts of really cool things that I can do with the Kemper that I probably could do with a pedal board. Some of them I could do, some of them I question whether I could do them or not. And some of the things that I do with the Kemper that are automatic, if I did them with an effects pedal board, I might need to buy more pedals in order to make it do what it is that I want to do. like for instance, with this bit that I have going on here, if I have a delay like that, I can turn it off. So I'm going to turn it off right now, but you can still hear it going. Okay, those are called delay trails. And so some delays do that, some of them don't. I also have this fun little bit in here built in that I could do this. And the guitar is playing, right? And now I can. And that's what they call infinity. So that's something that's built in. So, man, I'm torn. It really, individual effects cost more money, typically more versatile. They take a lot more space, more of a pain in the butt, cost more, but you do have that versatility. So I'm still looking for something that does it all. The Kemper is as close as I've found to anything like that. So. Yep. BT's Mitchell's still messing with his Dueling Ninja pedal. It's a marathon, indeed, and you can infinitely come up with different textures and sounds and everything, right? The overdrive sounds that I recommend are the two that I love the most are the Tube Screamer and the OCD by Full Tone. That's what the Dueling Ninja pedal is all about. It's literally those two sounds inside of a pedal, but that you can cascade them. So it's all the good stuff from both of those pedals. It's our own sound, of course, but it's a tip of the hat to both of those. And there are little adjustments, little tweaks that you can do on both of those, but then you can cascade them all at the same time. So best routing for a pedal, amp, and mic setup, best routing. Brian, I would need more specifics from you, what you mean by best routing. I mean, you plug the guitar in, it goes into the pedal, that goes into the amp, and then you put a microphone in front of the amp. So you have to let me know specifically what more than that you're talking about. Isaac is saying, hey, Eric, I'm having trouble doing one-fingered vibrato on the G, D, A, and E strings on an acoustic guitar. Is it even possible, or do I just need to build up more strength? You just need to build up more strength. It indeed is possible, yes. Robert's saying, did you know that can cause cancer? Yeah, if you're talking about EMF, yes, indeed. Of course it does, yeah. For those that believe in science, it definitely can cause cancer. Yes. My niece says we were born to die. He's not wrong. Everything causes cancer, but I don't feel like you're saying that in a good way. My knees hurt. That tone in your text doesn't sound like you mean that. No. Okay, I wanted to ask that I already ordered an Ibanez Prestige. It is a versatile guitar because this is the first time I'm getting into low pro tremolo system. Does that stay tuned pretty well? I don't know that one, sorry. Okay, can you simulate a deep low guitar voice that I sometimes hear on country guitar music sounds? Lloyd, what you're talking about there is it's a baritone guitar. And so that guitar is, if you had another 5 frets, essentially that would be the sound that you would get, okay? It's where this E string is now a B string. And so basically they're thicker strings and it's tuned standard, so you could play all the same chords, but it's going to be in an entirely different key, okay? So that's called a baritone guitar. And yes, technically I could simulate that, but if you really want to do it, you get a baritone guitar so that you've got that original sound. But yeah, I can do it, and actually pretty convincingly with this thing. It's pretty crazy. Doug is saying, could you comment on what the difference would be between a low-end Fender Squier and stepping up in the Fender Strat line? Yeah, Doug, it's a broad question, but essentially, when you're talking about cheaper guitars, you're talking about, this is how it works. A guitar that's $200 and a guitar that's $400 and a guitar that's $800 will most likely, if you were to let 100 guitar players play those guitars out of the box, usually they're going to be rated according to their cost, usually, but not always, okay? It depends, is that guitar, well, straight out of the box, probably so, because they'll give the $800 guitar more love before it leaves the factory than the $200 guitar. It's just true. That's how you make money in this world, is the stuff that costs less, you don't spend as much time on, right? For those of you for those that don't understand basic capitalism. For those things that you want to spend more money on, those are going to be better, like a Rolls Royce. It's just basic economics. But it seems like a lot of people don't know about that these days. So a low-priced Fender guitar is probably not going to play as well as that $800 guitar. It's 4 times the cost, that more expensive guitar. Is it going to play 4 times better? Probably not. Is a $400 guitar going to be twice as good as a $200 guitar? No, not really. If you could even quantify that, it's not going to probably play twice as good. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is, what guitar do you like? Which guitar can you afford? That's why in one of the first 2 videos that I have inside the free course that I'm giving you guys today, YourGuitarSage.com/30, first link below, one of the things I talk about is how to know that the acoustic guitar, the electric guitar that you're looking at is the guitar for you, that it's good, okay? And you don't have to understand a bunch of, doctoral bits about pickups and physics of sound and tone woods and this and that. You don't have to know any of that. You need to know how much money do you have to spend, what does the guitar sound like, what does it feel like, and I show you how to take those 3, because look, if you don't have $1,000, why are you looking at a $1,000 guitar? Okay, fine, go look at it so you can know what the difference is, but at the end of the day, play all the guitars in your price range, and then what sounds and feels the best. Sometimes it's not the same guitar. This one will sound better, this one will feel better, but feel you can usually fix. Usually the feel of a guitar, the strings and the height and all those things, a lot of things of those you can adjust. The sound of the guitar is pretty important. So for me, when I'm buying a guitar, it's price, because if I don't have the money for a $100,000 guitar, I'm not gonna buy one, right? If I don't have the money for a $1,000 guitar, I'm not gonna try it. Or I might try it, but again, I'm not gonna buy it. So the money is the first important thing, then the sound, and then the feel, because again, the feel you can change, usually, okay? Eric, I'm new, but let's go back to that, Doug. The electronics are gonna be different sometimes. You might have a tremolo system that was built in Mexico and one that was built in America. And the one in America might have a better rating in that it doesn't break as much or that sort of thing, or they're using cheaper parts for the Mexican parts, that sort of thing, okay? Other than that, I have to do that one pretty broad because it just depends on what 2 guitars you're talking about. Eric, I'm new and bought a new Fender Champion 40 watt and they don't really come with any sort of instruction. What do the Dueling Ninjas do? So the Dueling Ninja is an overdrive pedal, right? So for instance, if you don't like the sound of the overdrive of your amp, or it doesn't overdrive at all, well, then you need an overdrive pedal if you want to play rock and roll, if you want to play blues, if you want to play anything other than real clean sounds, right? You're going to need to have some sort of overdrive going on. That's what the Dueling Ninja does. If you go to my shop, go to YourGuitarSage.com, go to my shop, click on the Dueling Ninja pedal. Do we have an actual video up there, Mike?
There's not a video on that page.
We need to make one, Mike.
We have a video on YouTube.
Do we?
About the Dueling Ninja, absolutely.
Bro, would you put a note that we need to put that on that shop? I think that would be good for folks to be able to see it right there. That would be super cool. Okay. Yeah, that Super Champ, yeah, with the effects, it's nice. This is why I always say, man, it's so good that we don't all like the same gal or don't like the same guy or whatever. It's like, it's good because we'd all be going after the same person. So as far as guitars and amps and everything else, that's why one guy likes the Kemper and the next guy likes Axe Effects and the next guy likes a Boss Katana and the next guy likes a Marshall amp, and they all think they're right. So I have an old Gibson. Can I bring Del Gibson back to life, like pristine condition? Don't touch it, my friend. Here's what you want to do. God, this happens all the time. Let me, case in point here. This is a 1959 Gibson Junior. It's a Les Paul Junior. It's a 1959. I bought this thing for, I don't know how, it was under $4,000. Okay, it was under $4,000. Had the guy not painted the top of this, because you can see it's slightly different color. I'd like to get it back to original, but because that guy did that, he devalued this guitar, I would guess a minimum of $10,000. So, whereas he could have gotten, probably, I don't know how much that guitar would be pristine. But you don't want it to be pristine. What you want it to be is you want it to be original, rolling with the punches. So don't mess with it. If you do anything to your old Gibson, you will devalue it. Even if you make it all shiny with new sparkly paint job and all new shiny hardware and new pickups, why do I want that? I can get that. What we want is we want old. We want the old thing. So if you have an old Gibson, don't mess with it. Take it to someone who knows, though. I'm not talking about the pawn shop down the road. I'm saying come to Nashville, talk to George Gruen, or talk to somebody who really knows guitars. In fact, go to a few people and get their take on it, but not a pawn shop, because they don't know those things usually. Not disparaging pawn shops. It's just they're not going to know that stuff. Okay, so what is the minimum amount of pedals that you would like to take on a typical gig, and what would they be? That's a great question, Hershey. So depends on the gig, but an overdrive pedal, some sort of reverb, usually built into the amp, maybe a delay. So in that order. So if I don't have reverb built into the amp, then I'm going to want a reverb pedal. Usually it's built in there, so I'm going to have overdrive and I'm going to have delay. Those are the two minimal things that I would want. Now, there is something called an M5 pedal made by Line 6, and it has everything. It's like a Swiss Army knife. In fact, if you want to know about this, it's in my kit store, kit.co/YourGuitarSage, kit.co/YourGuitarSage. There it is. If you go there, I have this pedal in my store. It's called the Line 6 M5. And it basically has all the effects that I've used today and then some, like 100 and something effects. You can only pull up one at a time, but I think that pedal costs, I think you can get them for, $100, $110, something like that. They're great. I will never get rid of mine because it's so easy to use, and it's whatever effect you want at that time. So that would be a good one too. This way I could bring that pedal, the overdrive, and the delay, and then I would have anything that I needed between those three pedals. Okay. Okay. Do you have to spend a lot of money for good headphones? They can be pricey. Look, man, everything I've ever done in the beginning was cheap because I just didn't have the money. Now I have a little bit more money than I had when I was younger, so I'll get stuff that's a little bit higher quality, and sometimes I'll find that it's better, and sometimes I'm not hearing a difference. So I'm saying no. If you buy things right, a lot of times you can find stuff for very, very affordable, and it just so happens to be a sleeper. It doesn't have the same marketing that the expensive ones do, and you can get something for a good price, What should I learn after P90 tirades? Well, we don't want to get it. We don't want to have a tirade. We want to be cool. We want to be cool and collected. But you mean pentatonics and triads. I think you mean a nil. So, friend, start at YourGuitarSage.com/30. I can't implore you enough. I'm giving that to you for free, and I'm teaching you this stuff in order. If you don't have that solid foundation built, you're always going to be asking that question, what's next? If you build the solid foundation, you're going to know where to go. So start there, okay? And there's 10,000 other things that if you wanted to learn. What's next? There is no next. It depends on what it is that you're looking for. That would determine what's next. So there's no across-the-board answer, what's next. Does that make sense? Okay, home studio, budget setup, mic, mostly vocals and guitar, interface, other recording, SW, band in a box, DAW, Reaper, or other anything else? Robert, again, this is a question, I wouldn't even worry about that question. It's like you're getting ahead of yourself. So start recording. My guess is you probably haven't done a lot of recording yet. I'm not being mean, I'm just being honest. A lot of people think I'm being mean, I'm just being honest. You probably haven't done a lot of recording yet, and it's the classic, what do I need before I can get started? Nothing. You need your brain and you need to go. If you got a guitar and a pick, you just go. If you don't have the pick, you just go. You need the guitar, go. You don't need any permission, you don't need special things, you just need to go. Johnny B. Good, Jimi Hendrix, all these guys. Johnny B. Good's made up, but we get the idea, right? Oh, by the railroad tracks, he just had an old guitar. It's just like, that's all it is, okay? That's how to get going. And then what'll happen is you'll be going along and you'll be like, well, now why don't my vocals sound like his vocals? And then you'll watch some video on YouTube that'll talk about a preamp that's $1,000. And you'll be like, do I need to get one of those? And you'll hear such a difference and you'll be like, oh, maybe I need to get one of those. But you don't want to do it until you know that you need that, you know? And yeah, don't get, because you can go down that rabbit hole and never come out, and still not be, your stuff not sound any better for it, you know? Dear Lord, I haven't even come close to getting to all these questions. What's the best for blues, single coil, or humbucker? It just really depends. It depends on the music. Blues breakers, you know, they made the Les Paul famous. Stevie Ray Vaughan did pretty good on a Strat, so it just depends on what sound you're going for. What's the biggest difference between acoustic and electric guitars? From Maryland. Acoustic guitars you can play by themselves and they sound pretty good. Electric guitars, they sound like this by themselves. Right? Yeah, it's not the same. Different tones come from the electric guitars. They function a little bit differently. But main thing is the different sounds, you know? Okay, I'm gonna try to zing through these. Are delay trails as dangerous as chemtrails? No. Delay trails good, chemtrails bad. Thoughts on the Positive Grid Spark amp? I've worked with those guys a little bit. Their technology is real good. Last time I checked, but what they had turned me on to is they gave me what was you know, essentially the Spark, but it was all software. It was inside a computer, and for what I was trying to do, I really couldn't get it to work like I wanted to. So I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to represent it. So, but they got good stuff. You know, have I used the Boss Katana? Yeah, I've got one sitting right here. Did I do a review on one? I don't know. We got it for some reason, but we've got one here in the studio. Yeah, we use them every now and then if we need like a third amp or something. Major upgrade. Yeah, you can plug in 2 expression pedals. No, are you talking about if you're talking about the, oh yeah, you're talking about the M5. You can plug in at least 1 expression pedal, maybe 2. If you're talking about the Kemper, you can plug in 6 pedals, 6 expression pedals. What's your take on a Gibson 339? I don't have one, and that's a pretty generic question. So I would have to, you know, what's my take on a specific 339? That'd be a good question, because you know, one guitar is gonna be different than another. If you like it, it's the right guitar. Do you have any B-bender guitars, and what do you think of them? I don't play a lot of country, and they're great for those country licks. I did have one. I had a Nashville Telly. And I sold that, but they're cool if you like those country licks. They're very cool. Isaac's saying on acoustic, I can do a full step bends on the B and E string, but can only do half steps on the rest of the strings. Is it possible to do full step bends on the lower strings on an acoustic? Yeah, you could with thinner strings and or stronger fingers or better technique. That'll take time, but yes, you could. Okay, beautiful. My knees hurt. Thank you. We will put one up on that website. Okay, let me see if I can get to these questions, all these questions. I don't know anything about the Behringer T0 or TO800. I don't know anything about that, friend. Behringer makes good stuff, though. Are cheap potentiometers muddy, tone-wise? man, I don't know if they're going to be muddy per se, but they can fail. A lot of that has to do with the attenuation, the resistance of that particular potentiometer or pot. Any thoughts on Harley Benton's amplifiers, especially valve amp heads? No, I've only heard good things. Expensive. Someone is saying, oh, come on, we're gonna go just a few more minutes here. How many scales are there and how many should I learn? There are hundreds. You only need to learn, here's the deal. Learn the pentatonic and learn the major scale and learn to be deadly with those two. Then learn the other hundreds, maybe even thousands of scales. But really those two are the ones that you're gonna need. It's like having a saw and a hammer if you're a carpenter. You might need some of the other tools, but you're gonna need that saw and that hammer a lot, okay? What songs do I suggest I should play with a tremolo bar is what you're talking about, yeah? Sam, the songs that have it in there. If it has a song in there, you wanna use that tremolo bar, use it. Oh, thank you so much, Ray. Appreciate you as a veteran. Ionian is major, yep. What does stacking pedals mean? So stacking pedals just means, well, usually you don't talk about stacking pedals unless you talk about stacking overdrives. But stacking pedals, you know, when you have them in a row, we could call that stacking, I suppose. But usually when we're stacking overdrives, that's what this thing is. It's literally built into the pedal. You've got one side that's like a tube screamer type, and then you got the other that's like an OCD type. So what you're doing is you're stacking them, meaning you're feeding one into the other. So it creates a really cool, sound. Philstrom, thank you so much for the donation too, buddy. Appreciate that very much. Pedals before the amp or effects loop. Put your overdrives, fuzzes, and all that stuff, fuzz, overdrive, distortion before the effects loop, before it hits your amp. Put things like modulation, reverb, delay, that stuff, put that in the effects loop if you have one. Do you like or use wet, dry amp settings? I never have. I've dabbled with it, but I've never done it for live or studio or anything like that. I have not. Some real like high-end live gear setups I see where people really dig that. But again, man, unless I can hear a difference or unless there's like some sort of thing, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I have before and it's a big time suck. Stuff like that if you don't know what you're doing, you know. Flat wounds, someone's asking about flat wounds. Yeah, they're good for a darker type of tone, jazz and that sort of thing. How to get that worship guitar tone? You're dealing with lots of reverb, okay? So like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with the band has a lot of those types of sounds to them, right? A lot of the, you know. And so lots of reverb, lots of delay. That's in a nutshell, that's what it is. And that's the basic tone. Also clean, right? Maybe a slight bit of overdrive. Yeah, G string, B string on most guitars. It's just the way guitars are built, and that's the sound. They have tuning problems. They just do. So watch any of my videos on tuning where I address that. Search YourGuitarSage tuning, and I'll talk about those specifically. Eric, can you sight read sheet music on guitar, especially if it's polyphonic, or is it incredibly difficult compared to other instruments like a piano? Isaac, it has everything to do with how much time you're practicing it. You could be a savant genius, alien hybrid starseed child, and that will mean nothing to reading music if you don't practice it often. You can be a complete nincompoop, and if you practice sight reading all the time, you're going to be good at sight reading. Okay? I say it all the time. I had this girlfriend. She played in the Nashville Symphony. She still does. She could sight read anything. I could put anything in front of her, and she could just sight read it immediately, just like it was on the record. Amazing. Love that skill. But she couldn't improvise. She couldn't write. I mean, she could, but she didn't do it, so it's not going to come out very good, you know? So whatever it is that you do, that's what you're going to get good at, okay? So if you want to get good at sight reading, you got to practice it a lot. Are there books that describe how all those pedals modulate the sound waves? Jack, I don't know what you mean by modulate the sound waves, but there are plenty of books on effects. We have, inside the Unstoppable Guitar System, I have a whole course on effects and how to come up with those sounds, and it's lengthy. So, because that's really what you need, is a lengthy education in this stuff to truly get it, okay? All right, friends, a couple things really quickly. Very first link below, YourGuitarSage.com/30, gives you access to the Unstoppable Guitar System Standard. If you want to know about the guitar, if you want to build a solid foundation, that's where you go. It's the very first link below. We've got the referral program coming up. Again, we got a few of these left inside the store. If you're wanting overdrives, this is a great solution, and it's way less than the cost of buying two of these pedals, buying the Tube Screamer and buying the OCD. Way cheaper, and you can cascade them, and it saves real estate on your board, okay? Chip Henderson, Joe Robinson, courses out in April. Be looking out for those. If you are not on our email list, you need to get on our email list, because we are constantly, now twice a month, sending out massive coupons, like 80%, 90% off of these super courses that we're doing. So if you're into saving money and you're into playing guitar, make sure that you get on our email list. You can do that by signing up for the free course, okay? Love you guys. Great questions today. Hopefully I got some of your questions answered. I'm out of here. See ya.